Okay, good evening. Welcome to the Thurston County Board of County Commissioners public hearing regarding the 2022 and 2023 budget. It is 6:01 p.m. My name is Ty Menser, Chair of the Board. To my left is the Vice Chair, Commissioner Gary Edwards. And to my right is Commissioner Carolina Mejia. Ramiro Chavez, our County Manager, is to her right, and Robin Campbell, Assistant County Manager, and Amy Davis, Clerk of the Board, just to the right of County Manager. We are hearing a final piece of 2 days worth of public hearings regarding the pieces of the proposed budget. The purpose of this public hearing is to accept and consider public comment on the proposed budget, and any of the office, this particular piece is open, so we are taking comment on any piece of the budget or any of the office and department presentations from yesterday's and today's earlier public hearings. This is a hybrid public hearing. Those wishing to testify have joined in person, by Zoom, emailed, or mailed in comment. If you wish to testify, visit the county homepage online, select announcements of public hearings on the left-hand side, and the information to join remotely is posted there. You can also follow along on the county's YouTube channel through the live stream if you do not need to testify but want to follow along. Robin Campbell, our Assistant County Manager, will provide information on the topic. Some budget highlights, economic outlook, and we will then open it up to questions and comment. Any questions will be gathered by staff.
Commissioner, revision on the script, sorry, it's a carryover, is a public hearing, open, not necessarily with a follow-up with questions or follow-up comments. Yeah, well, yeah.
I think I was getting there.
Sorry, thank you.
Questions will be gathered by staff and routed to the appropriate official or department director for response, but will not happen here tonight. You'll have 4 minutes to testify. And time may not be given to another person. If Robin chooses to answer any of the questions that are applicable, then we can provide a follow-up period. So this is just following basically the way the last 2 evening hearings have gone. When you're called on, state your name and area in which you reside in the county for the record. Our hearing has been open. We are reopening after a recess, and I'm going to let the Assistant County Manager provide some information before we get to the public comment.
Thank you, Commissioner. I think my mic is live. So I am once again, hopefully for the final time, going to share my screen. Final time on the budget hearings at any rate. And start the, slideshow from this slide. Okay, so this evening I'm going to very, very briefly touch on the budget highlights since we went through those in detail yesterday. I'm going to give you a brief economic outlook, and then as the chair said, it will be open for public comment. So, written comments that you've received, we've collected them. I have received 4 written comments. There are 2 in your packet, and since I printed the packet, I've received 2 more. In brief, the comments that you've received is a request that the board fund the posting of a speed limit sign on Vale Road and enhance the sheriff's budget for personnel who would specifically enforce the limit on this road. This person also requested that you provide funding for animal services to respond to barking dog complaints in the rural county. The second comment I received was for the board to allocate funding for public bathrooms in Olympia specifically, but around Thurston County for public health and sanitation purposes, and their comment included that this would also support commerce purposes in Olympia, having public bathrooms available. The third comment was to express support for adequate budgets for recreation and open space that would ensure consistency with the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Plan, and to provide adequate budget for the fairgrounds. This person expressed concern that fairgrounds are possibly being considered for homeless or RV camp. And I'm not aware of that consideration at all, so, but this person had that concern, so I wanted to share that with the board. And then the last item that I've received via email is this person values the climate mitigation coordinator, the implementation of the racial equity plan, and supports, values support for the HCP, and asks that the board fully fund these items. They ask that you increase funding for public health and social services and emergency services, and that the board reduces the proportion of funding for the sheriff. They express that they do not believe that the law and justice should receive 73% of general fund when human services is only receiving 2%. So those are the written comments. And then, of course, all of the comments that you've received over the last 2 days. Tomorrow, we'll launch into final budget considerations. And in addition to the items throughout this budget that was published, I have also provided the board a packet. I sent this out via email on Friday. That has additional items for your consideration that we were not aware of on October 28th. This packet includes a revenue error that you are already aware of. There are technical alignments. There are a few places when we were preparing the budget book where the board directed funding be provided by the ARPA money, and we didn't get that changed, so we need to do the alignment. There are a few unanticipated items. There are a few grants, and then there is a cost in the sheriff's office because the sheriff received a letter from the state academy that academy costs will be higher than anticipated, and I provided you a copy of that letter. Then there are opportunities that the commissioners may want to consider in the final budget for investments. The two that are listed are potential trails projects out of REIT 2 and a contribution to the Brewery Park Visitor Center that would come from the Historic Preservation Fund. And then there are 5 offices and departments who asked for reconsideration of specific budget items, and those items are listed in this packet. So those are items that we can review tomorrow when you go into your final deliberations. All right. Here is the high-level overview. Once again, just at the bottom line, this is one of the highest budgets. This is the highest budget that I've ever seen for the county in the 12 years that I've been with the county. Revenue is anticipated in total at just under $525 million, and total expenditures are anticipated to be $514.5 million. In 2023, again, it starts to drop because of all the funding in 22, specifically related to pandemic response. So revenue in 2023 is anticipated to be $412 million, and expenditures $452 million as we spend down ending fund balances. The big, broad countywide highlight is that, as you've heard, in every office and department, almost every office and department has received funding that will enable them to continue to provide or enhance services to a growing population. The strong revenue growth in the county has enabled the board to fund not everything. There's never enough money for all of the requests, but you've made a substantial investment in services for citizens.
Robin, can I ask you something? One thing, I know you're not, it's on page 20. But I brought this up earlier today, where it says, this is 2022, 2023 preliminary budget all funds. And then it's the revenue.
You mic'd up? No.
No, wait, no, I'm not. I'm referring to page 20, and it's on the revenue side for 2022, and it's 116 million in general fund there. I thought that new number that we had was something like 135 or on that other sheet you gave us, you know, on the.
That other sheet.
That doesn't sound right to you. I could go find my budget sheet, I guess. Okay, you know the one that started ending fund balance, beginning fund balance, then ending fund balance, beginning?
No, that's different.
That's the new number.
This is revenue. The exact number provided on the previous.
Okay.
There's no fund balance on this chart,
There's no fund balance in here, Commissioner.
right?
Has somebody else got, somebody else doesn't have their,
I don't have my microphone, so.
You're on mute.
I think we're on the end, okay.
So the
Okay,
general fund.
I'm not gonna bug you about that again. I'll
No,
talk about
but
that
it's
later.
the same number.
Mic up.
It's the same number in
on.
terms of the revenue what is provided to you. I think what you're asking is the ending fund balance, which is different.
It just happened to be the same,
No,
okay.
The ending fund
Good enough.
balance is nowhere close to
I
100.
concede I'm,
But the ending
Out of
fund
my
balance,
bailiwick.
the ending fund balance is not 116 million, so I don't know where
I
that
wish I
number is.
had
So
that other
I'm not
sheet,
sure
but I'm gonna
which
talk to you about it
document-
later. Fine,
Yeah.
thank you. Sorry to bother you.
No, it's
Excuse me
it's
for
good. No,
interrupting.
it's all good. Any
This is
questions?
the time to ask.
We're
I
here to
know.
answer the
I don't have
questions.
all my stuff in front of me, so I'm good.
Okay.
You've got me so confused, I'm not sure what I'm asking.
Pages and pages. All right.
Fair
So
enough.
if you find the document, bring it
I
tomorrow.
will.
We can address it.
Okay.
All right. So I will say though, and the county manager referred to this, the numbers on this page reflect what is in the published budget document. And if you're referring to the forecast, there are additional items in the forecast. So there
You know, for
could
some
be a.
reason, I want to say it's page 331 in the budget book, but boy, I'd be
I
surprised.
just
That's it.
checked that, and these numbers align perfectly.
Okay, good enough.
Okay.
Okay.
So, all right, overall highlights, additional services
Sorry.
for citizens. It's a wonderful thing to be able to do. The budget includes a 2.5% cost of living increase for staff. This budget has a road levy shift reduced by 500,000. Again, you'll be considering that tomorrow as you consider how to address the revenue error that was uncovered. And then there is a leave buyout fund for a benefit across the county to provide 25% of the cost of retiring staff, which further reduces a burden on offices and departments. That's something they won't have to absorb. They've absorbed those costs in the past. That should free up at least a little bit of money for them to, again, invest in services to citizens. This is a list, and I'm not going to read it, but this is a list of the items that are more than $1 million in your budget. There are a lot of large items that the board was able to fund in the general fund at policy level. So it's significant, and I just wanted to provide it to you. And it also gives a flavor of the breadth of this budget. There's, I hate to say, something for everybody, but there almost is in this budget. It is very broad, and you had money available to do many things. Oh, yes, Commissioner.
More than $1 million?
Oh, I'm so sorry, no, over 100,000.
Over 100, okay. I was confused because I was like,
Good.
I slipped a decimal
I'm glad
there.
you asked that question, because I was
There had
wondering
only
about
been
that. The first
two
one,
items on the list.
heard it out, right?
it was
$1
just
million.
like,
Yeah, well, there are $2 million items, and one
Yes.
is the cost of
Okay.
living increase, and the other is for the sheriff. But the rest are over 100,000.
yeah, for the sheriff, I mean, the body cameras, that $1 million is going to be covered by a grant, right?
Yes, yes, $1 million from the state.
So these are just like requests as they are by the expenditure price, not like the revenue source that's
Right.
going to cover. Okay, thank you,
Not
sorry.
necessarily got the revenue, and in fact, you see the $2 million reduction under corrections. That is the shift that you're doing to detention sales tax that creates even more capacity in the general fund. All right, so moving on, and I'm not going to go through these because I went through all of the items yesterday in depth, and I don't want to take the time to repeat. Let's take a look at the economic underpinnings, if you will, of this budget. The property tax is increased by the limit of 1%. You do the full 1% is assumed in this budget. The assessor is estimating new construction this year at $728.5 million. That still may change just a little bit before the final levy is certified to the treasurer in January, but that's where it is today. And that's excellent, but you need to be aware that it is 10 million less than in 2020. So new construction may have hit a peak. We'll have to watch that. Growth in sales tax revenue, as I said earlier this evening, is at 14 or 19, 19.4%. It's a mind-boggling growth rate in the county, but year-to-date growth at 19.4%, comparing November of 21 year-to-date to November of 20 year-to-date. And it's anticipated to continue strong. The real estate market is also quite strong right now. I think in the paper today, I saw the real estate sales are up 15%. So even though it seems like there's very little, very few houses out there to buy, people are buying something. So the real estate market is strong, particularly the residential market. This is in part due to affordability in Thurston County and people coming to live here because they can't afford homes in King County and the closely surrounding areas there. So we're seeing migration into the county, and that also contributes to our population growth. The October 2021 unemployment rate is 3.8%, lower than the statewide average of 4.4%, and that is as low as I think I've ever seen it. It's definitely below pre-pandemic levels, and it could be below pre-recession levels. The population in Thurston County is almost 300,000. That's about 2% growth compared to last year. And federal and state funding to respond to COVID continues to pour in. The challenge around that is you see the budget pop up great big, and then it starts to drop back down. And it's up so much, and we don't know how long that's going to last or how long we're going to have money to spend or what the costs of pandemic response are going to continue to be. So we're still in a period of uncertainty. So while capacity and economic stimulus has pushed things up, we don't know what, and I don't like the term new normal, but I'm going to use, we don't know what normal is going to look like. We just don't know yet. So there is still some uncertainty, but the outlook of our economy is quite strong at this time. So here's a few graphs that show that. Here's the unemployment rate back to 1990. And again, you see that normal economic cycle, huge spike when everybody got sent home and a lot of people got laid off in March and April of 2020, but then it drops right back down, and we're definitely lower than pre-Great Recession unemployment levels. It's just crazy low.
That's crazy low.
Did you have
Crazy
a
low.
question about that?
Pardon?
No questions about the unemployment rate? I don't know that I'm qualified to answer them, but I could get back to you. The trend in sales tax revenue, we just looked at this in depth when you went through the revenue hearing. The growth in sales tax started in about 2015 and it has just gone up. Here's what it looks like in year-over-year growth. As you can see, 5% in not so good times is an average growth rate, and right now we're in strong economic times, which is why this budget includes growth of 10% in 2022 and 5% in 2023. I really am anticipating we've hit a peak and we're going to start to come back down. Here are the change in taxable retail sales. And this is a graph off the Department of Commerce website, the Washington State Department of Commerce. They maintain an economic recovery dashboard. You'll see that Thurston County is not unique. We're actually in the middle of the pack where it comes to retail growth in our sales tax. This has Thurston County at 12%. For the last 3 months, they're only looking at 3 months. The 19.4% is year to date, but 12% growth over the last 3 months in taxable retail sales. And that is right around where most counties, some counties are way ahead of us. I don't know what this county right down here on the Columbia is. But a lot of counties are having better growth rates than Thurston County is. So we are not unusual in this growth rate. And retail trade, I really can't explain what the difference is between retail sales and retail trade. I think that retail sales is a subsector of all of the taxable but the retail trade growth was at 10%. So the rates we're using are, again, not uncommon and supported by what the state is reporting. Here's the graph. At the time the board approved the preliminary budget on October 28th, once we got the actual numbers for the cost of living increase, entered into the system, this is where we're at. ending fund balance that I have been projecting is at 36.9 million. And as Romero told you earlier, the projection that we got from financial services just last Friday, they are predicting 38 million, a million more than me. It is literally off the chart. This line goes so high. But it's coming back down. And what the board has approved in this budget, specifically for the general fund, is spending more than your revenue to start to spend down the ending fund balance to a point where it begins to level off in 2028. You commissioners are doing exactly the right thing in taking the long-term view of the county's financial health. So you've approved a budget that includes an anticipated growth, modest growth in revenue. We've factored in the major driver of your expenses, which is personnel costs. We've put in the major drivers for that, so it too is showing an increase. This blue line is the target of 2 months of spending, maintaining a fund balance of 2 months. And then this line down here is the bottom, the absolute lowest threshold to maintain fund balance, so that you're in the high end of this range between the lowest to maintain cash flow needs and your targeted fund balance. You're on the high end of that. And again, as I stated, there are a few things that could change in the county's favor. If the state steps up and funds all of Blake, or if Blake costs less, if you have additional capacity and lost revenue from the ARPA funds. My sales tax forecast may be modest. It could be too high, but it's much more likely to be too low. There are flat assumptions for other types of taxes that will probably grow. So I think that this is an extremely responsible budget, puts you right in that range in the future. And over the next 5 years, you're well above the target. And this is just a forecast. And by that, I mean, forecasts are never perfectly accurate. I mean, it is a point in time best estimate by your professional budget staff. Collectively, we've got over 100 years of experience in budgeting. So this is a pretty good estimate, but that's all it is. Things will change between now and the time we close this fiscal year, and certainly before 2030, which is the out year of this projection. But this is a solid budget, and you're on a good path to county financial health. So here are the things coming that we want to watch and pay attention to. Revenue growth is allowed for increasing capacity in offices and departments to respond to a growing population. You hear that throughout my presentations. That is the theme of this budget. Even with growth, however, revenue couldn't cover everything. But it's continued to grow strong in the near term, and you'll have opportunities to reconsider this budget. There are a few things that we need to watch and pay attention to. Blake, COVID funding, the construction and the housing markets. If those are on a bubble and that goes south, then you're going to have to react specifically in the land use fund. And you're going to want to watch retail sales. to see just how far off my sales tax forecast actually is upward. You have something looming that could affect future years, and that is the employee salary survey. And that is probably going to result in salary and benefit increase in future years. So that's going to be a future pressure. And on the positive side, you have a substantial fund balance at this time. Most of your funds do. And you're able to take a long-term view that ensures the financial stability of the county. So with that, here's the next steps. Final deliberations on Wednesday. If you don't complete in the time that we have on your calendar tomorrow, we also have a session on Thursday. But if you finish tomorrow, we don't have to have the session on Thursday. But we do have time on both dates. Final decisions no later than Thursday, and then adopting the budgets on Friday, December 17th, and then we're done. Any questions I can answer for you?
No.
I think we've asked them all along the way.
I'm sorry?
I said, I think we asked them all along the way.
As we went, yep.
Okay, so now we can look at public comment, and there's no one on Zoom. Mr. Pelletier, you're up.
Say good afternoon, but it's good evening. So, good evening. Well, I have a particular subject which I'm going to bring up, very particular. I could kind of play this numbers game that I was just hearing. It's 36.9 million fund balance. Why are we having any consideration of a shift? Why would you be shifting money if you have this huge fund balance that's lingering way almost twice what the projected amount that you're trying to get down to? There's no reason to have a shift at all. There's no reason to have a 1% increase. It isn't about seeing how much you can extract out of the public. It's about providing the services that the public needs. Now, I'm going to suggest that one of the things which I'm going to talk about is you could save a couple $1 million a year real quick, and I realize this will be controversial a little bit, but you need to walk away from the atrium issue. That would save you immediately some significant money. Now, yesterday I asked a couple questions regarding the atrium and the process, whether or not we were going to be getting any type of RFP for doing any of the tenant improvements. I'd understood we were, but then I have something here that says quite different. I have something here I was a little shocked by, because I've been watching the city of Olympia, and they have a permit application in. They submitted in on the 12th of October for potential tenant improvements. The value of that improvements, $2,250,000. That's what the contractor put in as the value. But I think we were going to get some type of bidding process. Then I ended up getting, actually, Mr. Romero provided it to me, a copy of the lease, signed version. Thank you very much. And the county is already committed for that $2,250,000 valuation of tenant improvements. The county has already committed to $6.19 million for the expenditure for tenant improvements plus tax. Now, that leaves in hard dollars $3,859,029, which is not explained. I think we're all entitled to a real good explanation of why we would be paying nearly $4 million above what's considered the value, even by the contractor that submitted the permitting process. You don't have at this point any actual bids for what you might be doing here at the courthouse. You don't have any actual hard figures, and you haven't gone through a proposal process, a proper for bidding for that type of an expenditure. How can you approve that in the budget? You don't know how much it's going to cost to fix the courthouse. How can you move forward with a plan when you have no idea of the cost? I mean, it's irresponsible. You don't take a vacation with no money in your pocket and figure you're going to figure out a way to get there. I'm suggesting you take another direction. You pass on this program. You move forward with a real plan. Look forward for maybe a levy lid lift for the regular funds. Look forward for maybe a real plan for building a facility that would really fit for what the needs are. And investigate. Investigate, where's all that extra money going? If in the private sector, the first thing we do is we look to the employees and say, who's getting a payoff to spend my money? Who's getting a payoff to spend my money that costs so much less to do? I'm not pointing any fingers. I'm just saying there is absolutely zero cause to be spending nearly $4 million too much for improvements. And we've never had even a proposal or a bid in the process. We just have, oh, they're such nice guys. They'll do us a good deal. That's not the way you do business. So please, step back from the atrium and step away from shifting money and keep providing good services. It's great. The county manager says, we have this huge fund balance we've never had before. Let's go ahead and use a little bit of it right now and move forward. Thank you.
Nobody in Zoom, sir. So per your considerations to close the public hearings, unless the board has any questions.
Okay, is there any final questions before we consider closing the public hearing?
Is there any answer to Mr. Pettit's thing now, or that's not part of this at this time? I mean, he's just wondering about the bid or the,
I could respond
Difference?
to the tenant improvements at the atrium. The contract clearly states that the county shall pay the costs of the tenant improvement. And the amount on the page that Mr. Pettit is waving at you is the maximum amount that we would pay. It's the estimate at the time the contract was signed, but we won't pay more than what they cost.
okay.
And I believe I addressed that also earlier.
What was that, sir?
I addressed that earlier with the board as well. We will pay
Yeah.
true costs.
Yeah, well, this is just,
We're not going to be paying an additional $4 million, and nobody is in having a payout as we were accused.
okay.
Is there a motion to close the public hearings?
I would make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second.
Call for the vote on that.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Public hearing is closed.
You caught me sleeping.
And we will be back at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning to discuss some of the issues that
Deliberation.
are still lingering.
Yes, sir.
Yes, just, you've already gone.
Very quick.
Okay, good, too fast.
Too quick on the trigger.
That's okay.